So these soldiers come into huge play into that in that particular scenario in other large capacities. If you just have somebody who understands the end state and the problem and the pain point that you're working on connected to that technical expert, you kind of get that better product and a tool that they, want to use. We kind of always say soldiers know their problems. Soldiers also know how they want to solve the problem. And I think we need to listen.
Hey, this is Ryan Connell with the Chief Digital Artificial Intelligence Office, joined here today with Cathleen Rush. Kathleen, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Appreciate you being on.
No, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, well, let's just start. You want to just give a quick overview of who you are?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm currently the deputy of a newly formed organization called the Office of ARSOF Autonomy. ARSOF is Army Special Operations Forces. That is sitting in the U.S. Army Special Operations Headquarters, or the USASOC headquarters, down at Fort Liberty in North Carolina. It's a new organization that has recently sort of taken the AI division, the robotics division, and science and technology division and streamlined them into one entity to really help deliver rapid capabilities to the warfighter when it comes to operational or kinetic effect. Prior to that, I was the deputy for the AI division for a few years here. Before that, I was actually active duty in the Army as an engineer officer.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Great background. Looking forward to talking to you today. I just asked you something before the podcast started, which I know was my ignorance, but I was like, all right, USASOC, I think is like a Army component of SOCOM. I think you said that's correct, but I'll let you elaborate on that before we even dive in.
Yes, absolutely. So the USASOC headquarters is interesting. We report to both the Army and down to SOCOM, or the U.S. Special Operations Command. And on the SOCOM side, we represent the Army. So we're the Army office that makes up the joint elements of SOCOM with, of course, you have MARSOC, AVSOC, the Navy representatives as well. A couple other things that make up the SOCOM umbrella. And then on the Army side, just for clarity there as well, we are a part of the Army that just happens to be made up of special forces, civil affairs, and PSYOP, and some other specialty folks with some aviation and some, of course, the Ranger Regiment as well, that just really focus on specific missions and that different structure.
Got it. Okay. And so you mentioned you all took AI, and I think you said robotics and maybe one more, and kind of combined them all into this autonomy team?
Yes. So AI, robotics, and science and technology, in order to kind of get after the capabilities to the warfighter just the most effective and efficient way, we wanted to streamline that process. So USASOC has really invested heavily when it comes to technical leadership and just the advancement in that space. And we hired a command technology officer coming from industry with just, amazing experience on that side. And when he came aboard, he was able to put that missing piece together of, hey, all three of these sections are doing really good things, but let's put them together so that we can go faster and break down silos and just really have a matrix approach to solving, autonomy for whatever the types of problems are that we're facing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are you really focused on, or maybe the answer is the whole gamut, but is it the tech scouting part of emerging tech, or is it the acquisition part, or is it the delivery piece, or like what area are you focused on in terms of the emerging tech?
Sure. So the truthful answer is it's all of it. It's absolutely that early scouting, figuring out those low TR levels, the technology readiness levels, and seeing what does that future look like? What should we be developing for those future fights? It's absolutely the acquisition piece. How do you get hands of technology, through the governmental process and get things, to a state of not only delivery, but sustainability, scalability, and affordability as well. And then, of course, developing real practical solutions that are implemented for people to be able to take advantage of, whether it's speeding up a particular workflow or just giving them a new capacity or capability had before using software applications and AI programs and things like that.
Got it. Okay. And so, that's interesting, right? So the team, I'll let you talk to it, to what the extent you can, but must be made up of a whole bunch of different disciplines in terms of acquisition, and that you talked about a CTO. So like, what's the teaming look like?
So it is a pretty diverse group. One of the things I think that makes it exceptionally special is there is such a heavy military presence in what we are doing. There are a few, civilians that kind of work that piece as well. And then, of course, there are our contracting teammates coming, for that industry refresh and just keeping everything as current as possible. And of course, making up for specialty skill sets that perhaps we don't have as prevalent in uniform as that we would all like. With us, specifically, all of the folks are of the ARSOF background, so that Army Special Operations Forces. That's really what we have. There's a few, just interesting dynamics of how it all works that I'd be happy to expand on, especially using a use case with maybe how we would build a product or something of that nature. But it is definitely a hodgepodge of very interesting personalities. Very much, we kind of ourselves as, the nerds that also know how to shoot, move, and communicate really, really well. And so nerds to us is definitely not an offensive term. It's one that we take with pride, because we could talk very easily about some very, down in the weeds, tactical, real operational example, and then shift very quickly and have a debate on, some form of calculus or, what coding language makes sense more, and not miss a beat in any of that.
Yeah, that's super impressive. We talked a little earlier about the idea of you training up the actual military workforce. You want to get into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our big lines of effort that we have is what we call SOF Dev. So it's really developing that SOF force, focusing on technical upskilling. That is a wide net that we have. And it can be anywhere from just really helping somebody improve a skill that will help a day. And that's also all the way up to partnering with organizations, as our SOCOM headquarters or even Army, largely with, Army Futures Command as well, with some of their emerging technology pipelines, and taking advantage of training there, from whether it's sending folks through the software factory or up at the AI integration center, and really helping get, fully trained military service members able to do these technical skills. And then it's also in between of how do you offset the demand signal, knowing that you can only send so many folks through these formalized schools. How do we keep that pace and the demand of everybody needing more of this technology, and really just having so much of a component of software and AI development in almost everything? If you got to get down to it, it can be a part of almost every conversation.
Yeah, and I think I know the answer, but I want to ask a question anyway. And we've had a couple of similar conversations historically on the podcast here. Like, how do you find the balance of? So I'll give you like an extreme example, but you take a war fighter who needs to be in the trenches, just metaphorically, and you say, hey, I want to come teach you how to code. Oh, and I want to teach you how to do acquisition. And it's like, at what point are you pulling them too far away from warfighter need? Like, there's a reason that they're in uniform, to come learn some of the things that we've maybe historically had civilian workforce or contractor workforce support. Like, how do you find that balance?
It is an interesting, thing to think about at that point. You need to focus on fostering good careers and making sure that, especially on the ARSOF side, there's additional years and years of training resources put into soldiers to make qualified, ARSOF operators. And how do we balance that and not take away from all of that as well? But what we have found is it's actually much easier than you would think. There's definitely a lot of talent out in the force. They do this on the weekends. They love this at night. They're having, conversations about, hey, I'm trying to code this, or, I'm trying to build an app to do this, and just kind of, navigating that space on their own. And so the passion is there. And I think that there's a lot of folks that really are interested in it all on their own. And when you bring that operational experience and you attach it to the technology development, you get a better product in the end. And it's something that might actually be such a return on investment that depending on the situation, it's kind of a no-brainer and really helps drive really amazing capabilities in a much faster sense. And so commands are able to see that. You can foster that support in the investment and really make a difference. I think for us, especially on the people side, the command here is exceptionally invested in the people in general. There's a lot of statements and everything, but there's these fundamental truths. They're called the soft truths that we have. And, the number one is that humans are more important than hardware. And that means a lot of things, right? It means that no matter what, if we damage some sort of robot, okay, great. But how do we mitigate, damage to our most valuable resources, which is our people? But that also kind of circles back around to that means everything of that. The most important investment we do is our people. And, USASOC really devotes time, resources, education, and opportunity to really focus on this technology space. Definitely at the core of kind of who we are and what we do. And I think that if we could go faster, I think everybody would want that. But the balancing side, it is important to continue to ensure that these really highly competent and just amazing soldiers are still able to progress in their careers as well. And so that's the balance we try to strike. It's how long do they stay doing programs like this before they go back and have sort of that traditional career mapped, pathway to ensure that they're promotable and stay competitive in that sense.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I'm just thinking through, obviously user feedback is paramount in any sort of program or capability. Mm-hmm. But as you described it, if you have the type of person who's building an app on nights and weekends because they think it's fun and that's what they want to do, right? Of course, involving them in the solution to the extent of even helping write the code or helping do the UI or whatever that is, they're going to be so much more engaged in coming up with that capability and that end solution anyway, just because it's change management. It's change at you sucks, change with you is awesome, right? So I completely get it as you've described it.
Actually, to kind of expand on that, what you said there was really spot on. And that also comes down to using the solutions as well. For us, there's really kind of three tenets when we talk about, if we're going to build an application and a solution and put into place, you need three things to write up the be successful. The first is obviously your technical experts, right? Who can actually do that hands-on keyboard work, whether that's a platform engineer, a data scientist, a data engineer, whatever it may be. Do you have that resource available? The second of that is the functional expert. So these soldiers come into huge play into that in that particular scenario in other large capacities. If you just have somebody who understands the end state and the problem and the pain points that you're working on connected to that technical expert, you kind of get that better product and a tool that they want to use. We kind of always say soldiers know their problems, and I think that's probably obvious to say, but to expand on that, soldiers also know how they want to solve the problem. And I think we need to listen. And doing so gives results and applications that are not only built successfully and, in a positive way, but they're implemented in a positive way. And they're not just something, okay, great, I did this project and now I'm done and I shelf it and no one sees it again. I think that's a pretty big thing. And kind of to that point, the third and final thing is a resourcing strategy, right? You need to have an owner. You need that product manager, if you will, that's going to see that. You need the finances required, the time to be able to do it, the sustainment of it. So those sort of are the three things that we have. And when on the other side of that, you have a lot of just amazing capacity within industry. And there's all these just really great capabilities that industry is building it in a lot of ways, much faster or better ways than, some of us might be able to do with the resources that they have. Integrating that into, for the warfighter is a big deal. And so these soldiers not only can speak the language, and kind of translate, There's a specific GO that is coming to mind. This general officer was sitting there and he wanted to go deep into tech. And so we did not hold back. And we said all the words that were there. And he just looked, he said, you sounded like a dolphin. So it was affectionately known as the dolphin clicks. But on the flip side, if you have an operator who is sitting there talking about their language and how an operation works, for a developer who maybe has never served in the military or been anywhere, it sounds like a dolphin click to them. And so having these trained technologists, it's that middle ground who can translate dolphin to dolphin and really help making sure that you're on the right path and you're solving the real problem, not just creating a solution that doesn't actually do what you need it to do in the end.
Yeah. And the answer to this is maybe or likely no, but I'm just curious, like, if you have a soldier like developing or writing code on a solution that then in a year from now they are deployed using that solution, I don't know how common that situation even is, but if there is an error or something happens, are they like actually fixing code at the edge, or does it still go back to whoever's running that product at that time to make updates?
Sure. I mean, the situation depends. It could be either. That's one of the things, really devoting into the, these types of military technologists. It really gives you that technology all the way to the edge. It gives you that reach back. You can have this network of folks back, here at Fort Liberty or wherever you might be, who can answer the really hard changes. But if anything has shown us over the past, while with a lot of the lessons learned from, our allies and everything across the world, iteration matters. The speed of change matters. So if we have this capability that can be forward and be able to make changes right then and there, I don't see how that wouldn't be an ideal or positive thing to do. Of course, you have to moderate that, and it all comes down to risk and assuming the right risks in the right places with the right people. But having that sort of feedback loop, being able to be limitless in terms of the reach and the time and all of that, is a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah. And of course, I assume you don't want a soldier hunkered down in a bunker somewhere having to code.
Definitely not.
Coding safely. Cool. The other thing that ran through my mind as you were talking was the training element. It's something I hadn't really thought about when Hannah was on talking a lot about similar stuff here, but just like the idea of, like, typically, depending on how involved the user or soldier is in the development of any software capability, there has to be training on how to use the capability. I imagine that is significantly streamlined when they're actually part of developing, and they have that ingrained kind of SOF Dev knowledge going through this process. I assume that you've seen things like that occur.
Yes, I think the streamline effect is definitely there. I think mostly it's, when it comes to these types of skill sets, it's not like riding a bike where if you haven't done it in a while, if you're trying to teach your child how to ride a bike, you can kind of figure it back out after just, a few falls or hopefully falls. But with these, they atrophy really quickly. And so having the constant repetition and that practical hands-on is really vital. So, for us, we balance that with kind of of, hey, if folks are doing this, we sort of focus on that agile methodology, if you will, and have program increments broken down into sprints and have, hey, X amount of time is going to be devoted to these particular skills so that you're not atrophying and you're continuing developing. And to that point, we also match with specially selected contracted folks who serve as mentors, if you will. These people are here because they're senior skill sets and their industry experience, but a big portion of their job is to coach and mentor, quote unquote, like a junior developer that's coming out of one of these particular schools and sitting there, whether virtually or in person, next to that military coder, helping them through and continuing to upskill them as well.
That's awesome. I like that. All right. I'm going to kind of circle back a little bit to you and your role and your job, but just would love to hear if there's like something maybe you're most proud of or something that you're most passionate about, and then maybe one of the bigger challenges you have. Kind of hit both of those.
Wow. Honestly, the thing that I am most proud of is just seeing the growth both in scale and skill of the military technologists that we have. It is so inspiring to see those things come up and see soldiers be able to do these things and just learn things that they never knew before, and be able to talk to, big technology companies and industry and be engaged in the conversation, not just writing things down to look up later. It's definitely a passion to continue that. And that's really great. Kind of to that point, there's a lot of the same sort of things with the students as well, whether it's, one of the military academies or a college campus or, something like that. And just seeing the growth is probably where I get the most pride. At an individual level, that's a little bit harder to probably say. I just want to do, good work and help make a difference for all those in uniform. I never served in uniform when, in the USASOF environment. I was not SOF. I was in the conventional side, but it was something that, I've seen the deployments. I've seen all of that sort of stuff, and I know what it's like. And I just want to keep making it better as best that I can in my little lane, if you will. I think the other thing on the acquisition side is just really helping to understand, diversify opportunities and the different thought processes of maybe creative resourcing. There are, as I know you are an acquisition professional, there are a ton of options of how to go down your path, right? All of the options are good. They all have different variety and they have different, positives or negatives based on the situation, and just really helping educate folks into knowing that they have more than one option and that they can make decisions based on the outcome that they need, and perhaps do things in a different way and still get to their desired end state more effectively and, hopefully with the most return on investment that's possible, is probably a big one as well that I think more has come from, my championing at the individual level, which is good. I'm happy to see it.
Awesome. No, that's, yeah. I mean, even if it's just on the acquisition side alone, there's so much education that can happen for the user, the soldier, whoever. I mean, even the stories I have in the last year or so are just like, I mippered you money when you were in the contract. And I'm like, who are you? Why did you send money without talking? Right? Like those types of things, you just like, oh my gosh, like just kind of basics of acquisition that you kind of take for granted when you've been in it for so long. So any significant challenges that you are trying to overcome?
In terms of challenges, I think it's really just the comfortability of people understanding the technology. Depending on what your experience or your backgrounds were, a lot of people may not have been exposed to a lot of things. And I'll, sort of talk about the things that you need to do all of this type of work. You need a place to do it. And so people understanding, sort of what is needed at a platform level, whatever that platform might be, is something that we, just continue to help message, and understanding cybersecurity principles and, what are ATOs, the authority to operate? How do these things work? What is a CI/CD pipeline? What are all these things and why are they important, especially when you're advocating for constrained resources, if you will, maybe articulating up to some folks who, when they were younger in uniform at more of a tactical level at their stages of careers, they didn't have this type of technology. And so communicating that in a way that they understand that can be interesting. A way around that has always been trying to relate it back to something that they're comfortable with. And so using more tactical operational examples is usually helpful. And then I think, kind of to that point, you have the platform, but then also understanding how to use tools and what types of tools that there are. Generative AI is such a powerful thing that can really unlock so much opportunity, but you have to do it in the right way for your particular problem set and know kind of when to integrate it and when to not, and sort of understand all of the dynamics of what that might mean. prompt engineering is sort of something that I think we may be able to kind of take for granted, but be able to teach folks who've never dealt with this technology how to actually prompt things to get you what it is that you're looking for, so that you're not, looking at this and saying this is not helpful, and to just really implement it in a way that speeds you up and augments what you can let the machine do for you and free up your time to do what only you as a human can do.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And frankly, you hit on something that was going to be my next question. So I'll let you elaborate if there is more to elaborate. But I was going to ask, so you were the deputy of the AI, group, and then you consolidated to autonomy. Now you're the deputy there. Obviously, I'm from CDAO, so I got to ask the AI question. But are you guys doing anything in the Gen AI world? And if so, if you want to touch on it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, generative AI is definitely a huge focus area. Absolutely. Whether that is, I kind of mentioned earlier, so the Office of Autonomy OAA is really focused on that operational effects rather than so much of your business process and your sort of day-to-day, things on that business, enterprise business sort of place. We have folks who are doing that, but just our lens is that operational piece. So for us, it's how do you use these tools to help an operator speed up whatever decision cycle that might need to make in order to assess and give commanders real decision points and analytics quickly, so that they can prioritize and make perhaps better decisions and more complete decisions. Whether that's, utilizing, things with sound, or being able to just take, a task that happens all the time, but is of grave importance, and being able to automate things of it and help speed up things that absolutely are going to happen. If this, then this sort of, and just kind of speeding that up. And then also just really able to leverage these resources to not waste the human capital time doing things as well. Whether that's, hey, I need to write some sort of very specific, I don't know, like a requirements document, or perhaps I need to write a report or write or summarize this particular thing. And actually, we even tested it. I mean, how do you get through the FAR? As just, I know this, with acquisition as a focus in some of what you do. How can you use these tools to just get you the answers in a more complete and effective way, and also do it in a collaborative nature so that everyone is at the pace of relevancy?
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Yeah, similar initiatives, that seems to be, I guess, like documentation search, chatbot, documentation generation, potentially some agentic AI with like taskings, but those seem to be what most that I've talked to are focused on. So it's good to hear that the soft world is aligned.
They are aligned. A lot of times you just operate in different places or on different networks or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I think we're probably just like everybody else trying to make a different, defense industrial base. We just want to give the warfighters the best that they have and ensure that national security is prioritized, and, we have as much competitive advantage over any situation that could potentially happen in the future.
Yeah, no, awesome. Hey, before we wrap, just wanted to give you an opportunity. I know, we have a pretty robust audience from anywhere from the emerging tech to just AI interests to just like acquisition nerds. So I don't know, any departing thoughts or things that you want the listeners to take away?
Sure. No, thank you for the opportunity. I think if I had to message one thing, it would be that you need diversity in a cross-functional, team in order to make these things happen. You do need to have the true just professionals at a specific task of what they're doing, but they need to be sitting next to the people who are doing something different so that you are fully encompassing, kind of this holistic decision, and one that is, I know I mentioned it before, but not only secure, but scalable and affordable as well. We have, I think, a really great handle on what it is on the technical side that we need, but on the sustainable side, there's room there to invest in as well, whether that is your acquisitions professionals or it's even something, are really fortunate that we have great teammates across the board, but what is your infrastructure like, and what type of hardware versus software maybe you need? You need both. What is, do you move things to different types of platforms? Should we have, people who are experts in cloud technologies, in high power computing technologies, or whatever it may be? And I'd argue that we don't know, but we probably need all of it. And we just need to keep investing. And really, I think a big thing is just to stay hungry for this. I think a telltale sign if you find yourself in the right field is you can't really turn your brain off. If this is stuff that you think about or you read at night or on the weekends or, on holiday when it's quiet and you're just at home and maybe you finished all your family things or your chores or your friends or whatever it may be, if you find yourself continuing to think about it, this pace of change is so quickly that you're always going to be able to learn and, do all of those things. And then lastly on the partnerships that we have when it comes to industry and academia, they need to know that they're really critical in this. We are definitely on the same team and we all need each other to be successful, just in various ways. And I think that learning how to help each other in that space in a way that is the most effective is also pretty critical. So on the government side, let's learn a bit more about how do these things potentially work? How do we discuss their requirements or whatever it is that we might need in a way that helps them on the industry side be effective with their time and resources as well. And then on their side is them understanding that certain things might not be negotiable in terms of the security practices or requirements that we have, and just having people understand that there's a learning curve on both sides and being willing to take that journey together would be, I think, a big lesson that I hope people can just appreciate and keep growing and focusing on.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible message. I appreciate you sharing that. Thanks so much for being on today. This was an awesome conversation. Appreciate everything that you're doing. So keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.